This podcast is brought to you by Connect First Credit Union. And today we have a very special guest from the industry of agriculture, which is such an important industry in our province. We've talked about it here before, but we haven't had a guest from that sector before. So we're really excited to have our guest, who I will introduce in a moment shortly. But just to set it up a little bit, when we start thinking about agriculture, so many of us have probably these stereotypical views of what farmers and ranchers are like, what their life is like. And certainly there's some romantic elements of being a farmer or rancher in our province. But the reality is it's actually a very modern industry with modern technology that's really changing the world in so many respects. But I'm going to digress for a moment and just share my story. My very first, what I would kind of call real job, like first career type of job, is I had a position with the National Grains Bureau of Agriculture Canada. And I was quite naive about agriculture at the time. And that was such a great investment in my education and understanding of what ag's all about. I got to drive to farmers' fields, and I would have to, part of my training was to identify different types of grain, to differentiate between different types of wheat. I had to be able to actually tell you what that was. I can't do that anymore. That is a long lost skill from many, many years ago. But what I did really learn in that time period was just how incredibly hardworking and disciplined and driven and ambitious Canada's agriculture community is. And certainly when we zoom in here to Alberta, it is so true. And in the last decade, I got to spend quite a bit of time supporting farmers and ranchers. And just, I've been inspired by them. There's I think, an untold story here around how they are truly transforming the way we feed the world. And clearly, in Alberta, we produce a lot of food that feeds the world. It's a really exciting industry, and I think now is the perfect time to introduce our guest, Josh Umscheid, who actually comes from those roots of growing up on the family farm. He's started a couple really cool businesses we're going to be talking about. But Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell us a bit about yourself. Like, where'd you grow up, and how did you develop your passion for agriculture?
I grew up in Milo, Alberta. So I actually didn't grow up on the farm. I grew up in town. My parents lived in town. I was always on the farm, going to the farm and doing things. My grandpa used to pick me up on Friday, Mom said, and on his way home from work, and take me out to the farm, and he'd drop me back off Monday morning. So Mom didn't even see me when I was a baby, right? Like, over the years, I kept helping out on the farm on both sides. Both my grandparents farmed, so I'd help out. And I actually went away. I played baseball and chased a little bit of a dream for a little bit that way. And then, went to college, got a little bit of an education in recreation management. I laugh because, as it turns out, I only took that so I could continue to play ball. I should have. Hindsight, I probably should have taken something welding or something. So so I could. I had a skill for the farm when I came back. But then I came back and did a few different jobs, and then my wife and I we started the custom application business, and then that kind of brought us back to the farm. And I got more involved with my wife's side of the farm. And that's when we really pushed forward farming.
So in the names of your business, Big Slick Agriculture Supply and Big Slick Custom Spraying. Oh, and you have Three View Farms too. So you got three businesses. Tell us a little bit about them. What do you do?
Okay, so Big Slick Custom Spraying it's what started it for us. And that one's just a funny story. A neighbor and a friend of mine, he had the custom spraying business, and he was getting out of it to go full-time farming. And we were kind of looking for our way to get into the farm.
Right.
And so we were down at Little Bowl Boating, and he told me that, and I said, "You want to sell it?" And he said, "Sure." And so we started off, and we jumped into that. So we did that for a few years, and then, like I say, that kind of brought us back to the farm, and we were more involved on the farm and started farming. As it turned out, we rented our own land and kind of grew into it that way. So Big Slick operated as that company, and we farmed with it as well. Three View Farms, we just changed the name. We dropped Big Slick Custom Spraying. There's a little bit of a funny story to that, I guess. My wife started, she was going to sell cut flowers with another lady that's got a cut flower business down by us now. And they were going to different farmers markets up here in Calgary and things like that. And we didn't really think that Big Slick Custom Spraying was going to sell very many flowers. So we changed the name of our farm to Three View Farms. And Big Slick Egg Supply, we just started that. That's a company my dad and I just started. So dad's retiring. He's worked for 25 years or better in agriculture. He works for Nutrien right now, and he's retiring. And this was kind of an idea we had for his retirement plan, just to keep him active and keep him in the business. And it took off, actually. It's just taken off, and we've done really well. And now it's growing. So it's good. It's turned out to be a really good little side gig for us.
So maybe that's a good place to go. It's so great to hear that that's taken off, by the way. And in your story, you could hear how you've had to iterate your business model a bit to find new ways to succeed and so on. Sometimes I think when we think of, a lot of people, when we think of the agriculture sector, we think of just, very, cozy farms, the sort of the romantic view I was describing before.
Betcha.
What's it really like being an entrepreneur, leading businesses like this?
Well, I think it's like you said, right? A lot of people see farmers and they think that it is a cozy business, and we have this little farm and that's what we do for a living. I don't think a lot of people realize that the majority of farmers out there have second jobs and third jobs, and farming for a lot of people it's a passion, right? It's something that we want to do, and it's a lifestyle that we live and we enjoy. And in a lot of cases, in order for us to enjoy that lifestyle and continue it, we need another business to support ourselves.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we can't support ourselves farming or anything like that, but it's just, especially in the transition time, right? From one generation to the next. And I mean, that's where Turner and I are both at, right?
And Turner's one of our agriculture experts at Connect First.
At the bank that helps us. And it's great. And that's why I had to have a second business. And my father-in-law, when he started farming, I mean, he drove school bus and he had a rug cleaning business.
Right.
And that's what he did till he got into the transition and could take on the farm full time on his own. That's kind of where that comes about, and why I guess I'm fortunate that we were able to incorporate ag businesses into our farm as well.
Right.
We didn't have to go far outside or reach for a different job, but a lot of farmers, they're oil field operators as well. They work at our banks. They work at in the elevators. They do other jobs too. So.
Right. So when you hear the headlines about, record prices and ag and cattle and blah, 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 not a lot of people getting rich quick is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, let's be serious. This is a great year for us. I mean, the prices are records, and we're seeing amazing things, right? But let's not forget that in our area, the last 3 years, we were in a drought.
Right.
And we suffered big time losses. And these years are going to make up for it. I mean, the other thing that people don't see too is we're the middlemen,
right?
In every aspect of this industry, we are always that middle guy. We're price takers, and everybody sets our price for us. So everybody wants a piece of that pie, right? Like you're seeing $20 canola right now.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Inputs are going up this year.
Right.
The diesel's going up. Urea costs are going up. Everybody wants their portion of that pie too.
Right.
So it's not like we get to capitalize on those prices completely.
So it's almost, you're describing the story of like when you're a farmer or rancher or work in the industry, you have to be a big risk taker to make it work.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're not going to last long farming if you're not a risk taker. Every part of the job is risk. The whole year is based on risk, right? I mean, we're going to put a whole bunch of money in the ground, and then we're going to look to the sky and hope that Mother Nature gives us what we need to complete that job. But that being said, who isn't a risk taker in business, right? If you're going to succeed or you're going to get anywhere in business, you need to have a level of risk and involved in it, and you better be willing to take it. So
I agree with you 100%, Josh. And I know that is one of the reasons that at Connect First, about a year ago, we declared, independent business, so small, mid-sized business entrepreneurs, agriculture, farmers, ranchers are members we want to do more to help. Because we see, in our view, one of the things, there's lots of great things about financial institutions and banks, et cetera, but they're not always good with risk. And you have to understand risk. So you have to understand the business of farming to be really good at lending to it, to supporting our members in that space, which is why we're making that investment in folks like Turner. Well,
I can pat you guys on the back for that. I mean, right from the get-go, that is why we are with this institution. When I started Big Slick Custom Application, the other guy was dealing with a different bank, and I went to that bank to start, and I figured, this will be easy. Yeah. They've got the financial records. They've seen the business grow. They know how it operates. They should just be like, yep, you're going to take it over. Here's the money. go, right? No,
Right
that
on.
wasn't the case. They said, we got nothing to do with you. You don't have enough backing. You don't have enough experience, things like that. When I went over to at that time, it was McLeod Savings and Credit Union, right? And I went over there and I sat down with Sherry and I explained what we wanted to do to her. And I explained the experience we had at the other bank. She typed everything in her computer. She did all that, the risk modeling and all that. And she says, you don't qualify and we can't get you the money. And I said, okay, well, we'll go back and rethink this. And then she called and she says, come back in, let's talk. And we talked and we told her everything we wanted to do. And I mean, she took everything. We gave them our Oldsmobile Alero as backing. I don't know how much money that gained us in the loan, but we gave her everything we had.
It showed your commitment for sure, right?
Yeah, it did. I think and that helped, but also she stuck her neck out for us and she helped us and she started and thankfully, we didn't let her down. So,
but I mean, that's the ultimate risk-taking kind of scenario where you put it all on the line to invest in yourself and your family, your future. Yeah. And it's awesome. And hopefully that Oldsmobile Alero is no longer
it's no longer around. No, it went away fast. So
good. They were nice cars in their day.
Yeah, I suppose they were. It was a nice car actually. She was quite happy, but it wasn't just us that took the risk though there, right? Yeah. And that's why we appreciated that the bank doing that for us. And the best thing about it was that they were able to relate to us and relate to our job, and they knew us, right? And they knew the people in the community and how it works. So that was great. I mean, they took a risk on us, and thankfully it paid off.
I love your story, Josh, and I appreciate you sharing it. But I think that is one of the key differences between a credit union and a traditional bank. Like banks are important. They're good organizations. This isn't a knock to them. But the reality is today, our big banks in Canada are global organizations. And they look at where can we make the fastest, easiest, lowest costs profit in their entire global network. And to have that level of understanding in every community and is difficult for them. And I think that's what differentiates a credit union to many respects is that we're there. We have nowhere else to go. Yeah. If we don't make it work in the communities we're in, we won't be successful. Yeah. So your success is our success and vice versa.
And it's great. It's great. Yeah. We all have a little bit of a stake in the pie, right? Like, exactly. I think like a company as small as what we started out as to a big bank, what did we matter to them, right? But when you walk into the credit union, you mattered to them, and they and like I say, they relate to you.
When you're thinking about the future of agriculture in Alberta, the next decade, the opportunities and challenges we're facing, like what are your thoughts around the future of agriculture here?
I mean, the future of agriculture is changing daily, right? There's just so many areas for it to grow. We don't know what direction we're going to go. I guess a lot of it depends on everything. Yeah. The government can change what we do daily, right. Just the needs of the world and what's going on around the world, right? But I mean, as far as where is it going to go in Alberta, I mean, I think clearly sustainability is one of the biggest things, environmental policies, things like that, right? I mean, people want to see it done better, safer. But as far as the growth in agriculture, I think you're going to see, especially in the agri-food industry, you're going to see more in Alberta and Canada in general. We're going to start to finish those products here more.
Totally.
Right like, I mean, you're seeing, I don't even know anymore how many canola crush plants have been announced in the last year alone. Right. I think 3 or 4 that are being built in Canada. Pulse plants going up everywhere in Canada. And that's excellent. That's great. Yeah. Why are we shipping raw product over?
Why not? Then re-importing the
and then we're importing the finished good back. Yeah, it makes no sense, right? Why aren't we finishing the products here and then using we can use the byproduct, right? We can use the canola meal and things like that in our own industry here. So I think you're seeing a lot more of that. There's a lot more innovation too in the industry, like that's coming from it. We're seeing guys that want to start using flax straw for heating energy sources and different things like that. So that agri-food business and that idea to finish our products here is driving innovation in the industry.
Right on.
And it's only going to grow. I mean, you give people opportunity to innovate and they're going to, right?
Right on.
I mean, when we drive that stuff across the ocean or to other countries, we're giving them all that opportunity. Right. So let's do it here. Let's keep it in Canada and let's grow in Alberta,
I suspect some of our audience may not appreciate just how much technology is deployed in agriculture. Yeah. I'm quite in awe with some of the farmers and ranchers I've met over the years, yourself included in that. But just to see the technology they're using is pretty sophisticated, especially when we look at how, reducing costs by being precision spraying, right, and things like that. You want to share some stories around like how you're using technology in your industry?
One of the easiest things to talk about was auto steer. We were able to start steering our tractors with the computers, right? That was one of the ones. Everybody always thought, my father-in-law included, the older generation, it was like when auto steer came out, it was like a luxury.
Right.
Well, why do we need that? I've been driving my tractor for so long. Like I can steer, right? But then it's just like anything, you need to do that return on your investment. Let's figure out, how is auto steer going to make me money? Well, on a 40-foot header when I'm combining, and if I'm overlapping by 2 feet every time I go down the field, well, as I work my way across that field, pretty soon I've overlapped 3 complete widths of the combine's worth. Right. So if I take the diesel cost to go down that mile-long field 3 times, and everything that goes on with that, well, pretty soon that $12,000 computer it paid for itself. Right. So it seems like it's a luxury to have auto steer, but
it's just a good business.
End, it paid for itself.
Right on.
And then like you put it in the sprayers now. I mean, we got overlap of chemicals it took away. So we're not over applying the chemicals. Like, I mean, there's an environmental thing as well. But it also, there's the cost. I mean, chemicals are expensive. And so if we're not we can use less, then that helps us. But I mean, there's so much technology out there now. I mean, as far as the variable rate technology, like we're able to put different amounts of seed and fertilizer in areas that will use it better, right? Or we can maximize our profit and everything out of the field better. But we've got sectional control in the drills now, so there's no overlap like those odd-shaped fields. We're not overlapping into certain areas. And the technology just continues to grow and get better and better. I mean, one of the most exciting ones I think out there right now for spraying is there's a company out there, I think it's called Weed It. And they've developed a technology that actually sees the weed in the field, right? So when we're doing a pre-burn, it sees the green and it will only spray that plant.
Wow.
So you'll see a sprayer going across a field now, and 99% of the fields out here, and you just see them, they're fogging it on as they go.
Wow.
It's just pulsating and hitting the plant as it sees it. And that technology in the last couple of years has even grown further to the point where now they're actually identifying the weed in the field when the wheat crop or the canola crop's growing, and they're going to be able to just spray that weed out then too. Wow. So, I mean, it's cut down on costs. It's going to cut down on costs huge, like 90% savings in fields.
And better for the environment, like better just for all these
all these things better for the environment. I mean, that's one of the hardest things one of the things that we fight the most is explaining that, to people that we're not hurting the environment. Yeah. We're not trying to hurt the environment. We're not making unsafe food. And, it's hard to tell people that the amount of chemical that they see us spraying, you see that it looks bad, doesn't it? But most of that is water. The amount of chemical we're putting on a football field would be less than what's in this glass. Right. Like in a glass of water. That's what's going over a whole football field. So we're not doing bad things, but we are trying to make it even better yet, right? Yeah. If we can use less chemical, why wouldn't we? It's better for everybody.
One of the things that we want to do with this show is inspire, the what's next, those folks who are people like you today, but, take yourself 15, 20 years ago and put yourself today. Yeah. When you're breaking into the business and you're thinking about what your dreams are, like what advice do you have for them to get into the business?
To get into farming nowadays, unfortunately, on the scale that we farm, I guess, the bigger scale, it's a dream for a lot of people that's just never going to come true. The reason I say that is because the cost of land, the cost of equipment, the capital, the investment that's needed, you can't just walk in and start that, right? Right. You either got to have a family behind you that this has grown to, or you have to have a major backer of some sort, right? Or somebody that believes in you. And I've got a friend that I met through Twitter, and he got into farming. And he's I would say he's honestly one of the few people to get into the scale like we're talking. And the way he did it was he had some neighbors around, some older neighbors that were willing to give him a chance, right? But he's working a very hard second job to make that work. And because he has a passion for the farming and he wants to get into it. So looking back, like you said, if I looked back, I mean, I wouldn't even have thought I'd had this opportunity.
Right.
My opportunity was gone. My uncle sold our other one farm. My other uncle that was farming my other side of the family's farm, there was no sign of him quitting, and he had a son and daughter of his own that probably were going to take it over, right?
Right.
So, I mean, my opportunity was gone to farm. I didn't have it. And I was fortunate enough when I met my wife and her family, and we got married and everything, that my father-in-law has taken me into the business and allowed me to start farming again, and we've grown it that way. A lot of people laugh like, I'm not the son. I'm not the blood son, right? Usually the farm is given down to your child. So for him to do that for me, it's awesome. But the opportunity in that scale is just not there. But there's so much more opportunity now in agriculture, right? Like there's these different opportunities to get into farming and different aspects of it. Smaller scale stuff, more farm to plate.
Right.
Some of that stuff, I think there's lots of opportunity for people to get into that.
Right on.
But as long as people remember too, like this business is 110, 120 years old. It's not something that was just handed to us or given to us.
Right.
It's been built from here to here. During that time period, none of the generations that ran our farm right now decided to take everything and go.
Right on.
Right? Or sell it to somebody else.
Right.
So it's just continued to build, and that's where it's got to where it is.
And I love the thinking around the value-added production possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's how much value in the value chain we had traditionally let other countries take.
Yeah.
Like I recall, had a relationship with a hog farmer. Basically, had just produced the hogs, would export them to Italy, and it was just amazing that the value that stayed in Italy from the hogs that he grew here was like we were buying back the product at 10 times the price we sold it. So how much value we can keep here if we can get better at it.
Well, and I think it's going to benefit everybody, right? How does it bring the cost down of that end product at in the store? Hopefully we can bring those costs down here at home. And it should bring up the value of our product to the farmer themselves, because now we're not paying those shipping costs, or we're not having to lose that cost and value to other companies or other people along the way.
Heck, there's an environmental benefit to that, right? When we're not shipping.
If we're not shipping raw goods all over, we can ship the end product instead. It's a lot less. So
one of the things that we talked about on this show before is some of the communities that are getting formed in different areas, like technology. There's a sort of a technology community that's building in Alberta and so on now. But I think from what I see, and I'd love your perspective, the farm community is probably the ultimate community in terms of relationships. Like, what is it like? Do you know your friends, your competitors, what have you in the market?
Yeah, I guess. Are we all competitors? I don't know. Farming's a funny business that way. Turner and I were talking about it on the way up. Farmers have always been really guarded, I guess. Hey, like I said, you don't want to tell your neighbor how much money you're making or how your crop did, right? Like, God, you call a farmer and ask him how much rain he got, and you don't know if you're getting the right answer ever. The neighbor got 1 inch and the other neighbor only got a half an inch. It just depends on what they decide they want to tell you.
That's funny.
But as far as knowing our neighbors and our competitors, like, we all know each other and everything, but are we competitors? Are we competing? No, you're not competing. We're not competing for space or land or anything like that. For the most part, you're exactly right. We're a community. Everybody's a community out there, and we like to keep it that way. You like to have that close-knit feel about it, and you like to be able to go over to the neighbors and borrow something, and if something happens, you're going to be there to help them out, and that hasn't changed. It's always been there, and it always will be. We'll help you out any day of the week if you need it. It doesn't matter if we hate you or you did something to us, you bought some land, stole some land, you got a fire, we'll be there with the disc. That's just the way it works. That's the community behind it.
And that's amazing, right? Like helping friends and foes.
It honestly it is. And you really don't understand that community until you see it happen. My father-in-law got, years ago, he got West Nile. He was in the hospital and in a very rough spot, and it was in the middle of harvest. And we had a fire on the farm too, and took out some of the crop. And we didn't do anything. The neighbors showed up. They finished harvest for us, and they did it for him. And they put it in the bin and made sure it was all good, and walked away. And you can offer stuff to them. Nobody's going to take anything for it. that's what you do, and
Right
that's
on.
what you will do. So that's nice. That'll always be there. I can't see that ever going away. That's part of the lifestyle, and that's part of what we enjoy out there, right?
So we're getting to the part of the show where I ask you for advice. Like we're trying to redesign a credit union for the 2020s. Like a lot of folks have an impression of a credit union that's kind of like you're somehow going to be less something or older fashioned or what have you. We think the opposite. We think we can be the most modern organization in the world and still have deep rooted community connections and support and expertise that people need. But as we're on this journey, what advice do you have for us to be the best credit union for you we can be?
I think just keep doing what they were doing, especially out in the rural area. The idea of still being able to go into the building, just that experience to be able to go in and talk. Like I understand how in the city and being able to do your banking digitally, that's a benefit to people, to not have to drive somewhere and find your bank. But I mean, for me, it's a trip to town. We're going to go have coffee, we're going to go get parts, and we're going to stop at the bank.
Nice.
And it's nice to stop and talk to the banker and see what's going on. And, maybe you got to discuss a loan. We want to do that in person, and we still want that feel, right? Like
Right on.
that personalized relationship with the people that are loaning to us. And I think the reason for that is it's important for us in our industry, for our bankers and that, to understand the industry and to understand what we do. Like I'll be 100% honest, when First Calgary, when they announced that they were going to join with First Calgary, I voted no. I said, no, I don't want this. Like I'm worried we're going to lose our representation. We're going to get that urban feel come out to the country, and they're going to try and do things that way. And there was a time in my bank where I had one advisor that wasn't farm related, and he just didn't understand.
Yeah.
And it was so hard for me because before that I could walk in and say, hey, I'm going to the auction sale today. I'm looking at this tractor, it's 250 grand, I'm going to buy it.
Right on.
And they're like, yeah, okay, go do it, and we'll figure it out when you get home, kind of thing.
Right,
We know where you're at.
Yeah.
And this guy's going, whoa, I got to run some numbers here. And then I'm going, hey, this isn't working for me.
Right.
It's it was a little bit of a luxury, I guess, I had before. It brought me back down to earth a bit. And Turner's good that way too. He brings me back down to earth every now and then too. But it's so much easier to walk into the credit union now and say to him, hey, Turner, I'm going to do this. I'm looking at this. I need this piece of equipment. And he knows. Oh,
he gets it
I know what that equipment is, and
yeah.
I know why you're doing it. And now we're just talking financials. Is it doable, right? But it's easier when he understands that. So we can't lose that feel. And I think moving forward for us in the rural area, that's what we need, is people that understand our industry. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think everybody would like that, even up in the city. I'm sure.
Totally.
If you're a baker opening a bakery, you'd love for your banker to know exactly what happens with a bakery. But there's just more diversity up here that you have to deal with. So, but that's what we need moving forward. Is as far as the technology and the advancements in digital banking and things like that. That's nice for us too. I like that. Sure. During the pandemic, it was great to be able to put a check in the bank from home. But still, if I need to make that phone call to my banker and talk to them and be able to go in and see them and sit down. So moving forward, that's what we need. And we need the support. We need the continued support in the growth and people to understand the advances and what we're trying to do.
Right on.
And I think probably the reason that you and I ended up here is I know I heard you on Talk with the Experts there, and I was giving Turner a hard time about it. I loved everything you had to say on there. It was awesome listening to you talk.
Josh.
No, it was so great listening to you talk on there, and your excitement for all industry and where Connect First is going. I love for people to be excited about growth, and that's what I want when I'm looking for somebody that's working with my companies. I want, if you're not as excited to grow with me and try and grow with us, then you're not going to be involved with us. We don't want you around then, right? Because we need people that see the future like we do. So that excited me about your interview. What I said to Turner is when I said that I wished you had brought agriculture into that conversation more, it wasn't that I wanted to hear that, agriculture is big in our bank and everything. What I want to hear is a person like you has the ear of people in Calgary. You have the ear of city people, I'll call them. I don't want to say it. I'm not sure, you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
So we need that help, right? Moving forward. We need people like you that are keen to learn about our industry to pass that knowledge on whenever we can, the little tidbits. And if people in the city can learn a little bit from you because you have their ear, then that helps us down the road. And it helps them to understand what we're trying to do moving forward. And I think those connections, now that I look back, I'm quite happy that First Calgary and our banks all amalgamated, because I think it does create that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
If we have a credit union like yours that'll can bring some of that rural into the city, and we can break that divide right now. Everybody feels that divide between rural and urban.
Totally.
I mean, in politics, they're making that divide everywhere. We need to crack that. We can't have a solid left, a solid right, or this side of the fence.
Right. We need to come together.
We need to come together, and the bank, you guys can help us with that. If people understand, we need to understand what's going on up here, and they need to understand what's going on out there. And I think so, as long as we're working together and moving forward together, then that's the best thing that can happen.
I love it, Josh. The last question we usually, well, maybe it's second last, depending how you put it, but we always ask for a prediction. Like, what do you think Alberta and agriculture is going to look like 10 years from now?
I really don't know. That's
a tough one.
It's a tough question, especially for agriculture. Who would have thought, like, if you'd asked 10 years ago, my father-in-law, he'd be sitting in the tractor with his hands on his knees watching a computer screen, he'd have probably laughed at you, right? I mean, we already see the advancements. Like, we have DOT. It seeds on its own in the field. We draw boundaries. So I suspect we're going to see a lot more autonomous farming out there. Who knows? The advancements in the technology. I just hope that we can be more open about what we're doing, and people can get back to being able to understand both sides of a conversation. Too much right now, I feel like if you don't draw a line in the sand, and everybody expects you to either be here or there, right? And moving forward, I just wish that people would get back to being able to sit on that fence. You can have your opinion. You can think that this style of farming is the best way to farm, or this style is the best way to farm, as long as you understand why both sides do what they do, and what purpose they have in the future and moving ahead.
Any last thoughts you want to share with our audience before I let you get back to your work, which is very important work?
That was my biggest point to the conversation with yourself and people like that. I want to see society get back to not having these lines in the sand. And it falls on everything. It doesn't just follow with agriculture, right? Like, let's get back to being open-minded and hearing what everybody has to say. Let's understand what everybody does. And I think it'll help in agriculture. If people want to learn about what we do out in the rural area and how agriculture works, it'll help them move forward and understanding why we do it.
Right.
But they need to open up and to understand it.
And it's a surprising number of people don't really know where their food comes from.
It is, and it's scary. And I think Turner said that once. You used to be able to walk into a city or grab anybody, and they had a connection to the rural, right? Or to a farm or something. The family member grew up there, or they grew up there, or grandma and grandpa still live out there. Well, that's gone now. There is a complete generation that have grown up in the urban area and have never left.
Right.
And so making that connection isn't there anymore. And for a lot of people, farming is that children's book that they read to their kid, like Old MacDonald, right? You got the barn and the nice little green tractor and the plow and things. They just don't understand. That's the hard thing. And farmers, I mean, we're recognizing it via social media and things like that now, that we need to get our story out there. We need to get it out, the positive side of our story, and explain that. And we've been so awful at doing that for so many years. And it's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt us moving forward. If we don't start to open up, it's not going to help us. And that's what we need to do, is open up the industry, let people come in and see what we're doing and why we're doing this. Why do we spray that chemical? Why do we use this genetically modified plant? And what are we doing it for? And if we can get people to understand that and realize it, and you realize that we're not trying to kill them, we're not putting bad stuff in their food, we're trying to actually feed them and feed the world.
Well, and that's the opportunity for Alberta, right? And in the decade ahead is that the world's growing. It needs food.
It does.
We produce a lot of it. Josh, I can't thank you enough for joining us on the show today.
Thanks.
You've been a great guest. I think brought a lot of insight to our audience. And to your point, we have a lot of urban people listening to our, so hopefully you got your message through too.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Next steps. It was so great having Josh on the show. So Josh, can't thank you enough for joining us. Feeding the world is important work. And it's work that farmers and ranchers throughout Alberta are doing every day. And it's high risk, it's hard, it requires an incredible amount of commitment. And there's no question that all of us in this province owe some kind of debt of gratitude to these farmers and ranchers who are literally making sure there's food on the table here in Alberta and around the world. But it was so much fun talking with Josh about the opportunities that do exist around agriculture when we start thinking about the value-added industries, how Canada and certainly here in Alberta, we can do so much more to add value to the value chain, to the food products that are being grown here. Instead of just exporting the raw product, what can we do to do more to create great products that we export to the world and eat right here at home? And when you start thinking about the innovation that goes along with that, either whether it's in primary production or in secondary value-added value chains, there's so much innovation happening, and we're seeing it everywhere. Josh talked about crushing plants being built all over Western Canada, and it's so great to hear that those kinds of things are occurring, and those new plants are so innovative and forward-thinking. Technology in general in ag is so innovative and forward-thinking. When you hear about the selective use of spraying and how it's being technology is changing the industry, it's phenomenal. But I think I would sum it up with this: is that farming has probably become a more misunderstood industry just because it's changed so much, but perhaps our perspective of the industry hasn't kept up. It's time that we start to understand how important this industry is to our province. So certainly, it's one of the reasons our credit union has made a big statement here saying we're standing up a line of business focused on this business so that we can develop expertise, we can hire the expertise, have folks on our bench, on our team who are as expert in the business as the farmers and ranchers we're helping so that we can truly bring them the professional advice they need. And Turner, who is one of our best, he was mentioned a couple times in the show, iterated, it isn't even just about the banking. It's about, making sure that the accountants, the lawyers, all the professionals around our farmers and ranchers really understand their business to bring the right advice. We would expect no different in oil and gas. We'd expect no different in technology. We can't expect different in farming and ranching. So our commitment is to ensure that we're doing our part to help our farmers and ranchers in this province be as successful as possible in the decade ahead as we continue to transition and transform here in Alberta. If you liked what you heard today, share it with your network. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on What's Next Alberta.